Megadeth.
Megadeth is an American thrash metal band from Los Angeles, California, formed in 1983 by guitarist Dave Mustaine and bassist David Ellefson, shortly after Mustaine's dismissal from Metallica. In 1985, the group released its debut album through Combat Records, an independent record label. The album's moderate commercial success caught the attention of bigger record labels, and they soon signed to Capitol Records. Their first major label album, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying?, was released in October 1986, and is considered highly influential in the underground metal scene. Despite the album being prominent at thrash metal, frequent disputes between the band members and issues with drug abuse earned the band negative publicity during this period. After stabilizing their lineup, Megadeth released a number of platinum-selling albums, including Countdown to Extinction, certified double platinum. This album, along with touring worldwide, aided in bringing Megadeth to public recognition. In 2002, Megadeth temporarily disbanded when Mustaine suffered an arm injury. The band re-established in 2004, performing without bassist David Ellefson as he had taken legal action against Mustaine. After settling the disagreement with Mustaine out of court, Ellefson rejoined the group in 2010. In the summer of 2005, Megadeth launched its own music festival, Gigantour, which has been hosted several times over the years. Megadeth is known for its distinctive, technical instrumental style that often features fast rhythm sections and complex arrangements. Their lyrics convey gloomy themes including death, war, politics, and religion. The group has experienced controversy over its musical approach and lyricism, including cancelled concerts and album bans. MTV has refused to play two of the band's videos the network considered to condone suicide. The band's mascot, Vic Rattlerhead, has regularly appeared on the album artworks, and from 2010, at the band's live shows as well. A pioneer of the American thrash metal scene, the band is credited as one of the genre's Big Four along with Anthrax, Metallica and Slayer, who were responsible for thrash metal's creation, development, and popularization. As of 2014, Megadeth has released 14 studio albums, 6 of them certified platinum in the United States. To date, Megadeth has sold 50 million records worldwide and received 11 Grammy nominations, and ranks as one of the most successful American heavy metal bands.
History. Early days 1983-84.
Dave Mustaine was the original lead guitarist for Metallica when they formed in 1981. He was member of the band for nearly a year and participated in composing their early songs. However, before the start of the recording sessions of Metallica's debut album, Mustaine was dismissed from the band because of his substance abuse and personal conflicts with members James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. 2 months after being fired, Mustaine and bassist David Ellefson formed Megadeth in Los Angeles, California. With his new band, Mustaine's intention was to play faster and heavier music than his Metallica. According to Mustaine, the name Megadeth represents the inhalation of power, while it is in itself a misspelling of the term Megadeth. The band name came from a pamphlet by Californian Senator Alan Cranston that Mustaine found on the floor of a bus he was on after being fired from Metallica. In it, he read, "The arsenal of Megadeth can't be rid no matter what the peace treaties come to." Despite his enthusiasm, Mustaine had trouble finding additional members for the band's initial lineup. Upon starting the band, he and Ellefson had examined about 15 drummers, hoping to find one who comprehended the meter changes in music. In the meantime, Kerry King from Slayer took duties on lead guitar. They eventually selected drummer Lee Rauch, and after unsuccessfully searching for a lead vocalist for 6 months, agreed to make Mustaine the lead vocalist. Mustaine also served as the band's main lyricist and songwriter, in addition to handling rhythm and lead guitar duties. In 1984, Megadeth recorded a 3-song demo tape, featuring Mustaine, Ellefson and Rauch. The demo contained early versions of Last Rites Love to Death, Skull Beneath the Skin, and Mechanics, all of which eventually appeared on their debut studio album. the band performed in concert a few times in 1984, before replacing Rausch with jazz fusion drummer Gar Samuelson. They added guitarist Chris Poland as a full-time member in December that year. After looking at a few labels, frontman Dave Mustaine decided to sign with New York-based independent label Combat Records because they offered him the highest budget for recording their album and starting a promotional tour.
Killing is my business and business is good. 1985.
In 1985, the band was given $8,000 by Combat Records to record and produce its debut album. After spending half of the album's budget on drugs, alcohol, and food, the band was forced to fire their original producer and finish the recording duties themselves. This situation negatively affected the sound quality of the record. Despite poor production, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good was released that summer. The album was relatively successful in underground metal circles and caught the attention of major record labels. Despite the overall foggy sound, music biographer Joel McIver praised its blistering technicality, and acknowledged that the album raised the bar for the whole thrash metal scene, with guitarists forced to perform even more accurately and powerfully. The record's cover saw the debut of the band's mascot, Vic Rattlerhead, who would make regular appearances on the cover art to the following studio albums. The album features Mechanics, a song Mustaine had written during his tenure with Metallica. After he was dismissed from the band, Mustaine told them not to use the music he had written. Despite this, Metallica recorded a different version of the song entitled The Four Horsemen, with a slower tempo and a melodic middle section. Another track from the album that drew controversy was Megadeth's version of Nancy Sinatra's classic These Boots Are Made for Walkin', recorded at a faster pace with altered lyrics. The cover sparked controversy during the 1990s when its original author, Lee Hazelwood, deemed Mustaine's changes to be vile and offensive, and demanded the song be removed from the album. Under threat of legal action, it was removed from the pressings released between 1995 and 2001. In the summer of 1985, the group toured in North America for the first time, supporting Killing Is My Business. With Exciter. Guitarist Chris Poland joined Megadeth as the tour began, but abruptly left the band and was replaced by touring guitarist Mike Albert. Poland later rejoined Megadeth in October 1985, shortly before they began working on their second album for Combat Records.
Peace sells. But who's buying? 1986-87.
The songs on Megadeth's second studio album were written and developed before the band began recording. Dave Mustaine had composed the music, while the other members helped with some ideas on the arrangements. The songs were written in a relatively short period at an old warehouse south of Los Angeles. According to Mustaine, the band was under great pressure to deliver another successful record at the time, that's so for more offering is the be-all or end-all of any band. You either go to the next level, or it's the beginning of the nadir. Megadeth's second studio album was produced using a small recording budget provided by Combat Records. Not satisfied with the financial limitations of their current label, Megadeth soon left Combat and signed with Capitol Records. Capitol bought the rights to their upcoming album and hired producer Paul Lanny to remix the earlier recordings. Peace Sells. But Who's Buying? Was recorded with a budget of $25,000 and released in the fall of 1986. It contained clearer studio production and more sophisticated songwriting. This record was noted for its political commentary and saw Megadeth expanding their fanbase. Mustaine explained that Megadeth tried to write socially aware lyrics, unlike mainstream heavy metal bands who were singing about hedonistic pleasures. The title track was chosen as the album's lead single and was accompanied by a music video. It received regular airplay on MTV and was noted by music critics for its cynicism towards the economic situation in the United States. In February 1987, Megadeth was added as the opening band on Alice Cooper's Constrictor Tour. In March, Megadeth began their first world tour as a headlining act in the United Kingdom. The tour continued in the United States with Overkill and Necros as the supporting acts and lasted for 72 weeks. During the tour, Mustaine and Ellefson considered firing Samuelson because of his excessive drug abuse. Mustaine claimed that Samuelson had become too much to handle when intoxicated. Drummer Chuck Byler traveled with the band for the last dates of the tour because the other members were afraid that Samuelson would not be able to continue touring. Meanwhile, guitarist Chris Poland had occasional quarrels with Mustaine, because he was accused of selling the band's equipment to buy heroin. Due to problems stemming from substance abuse and problematic behavior, Samuelson and Poland were asked to leave Megadeth in June 1987. The same year, then 16-year-old guitarist Jeff Loomis of Sanctuary, auditioned following the departure of Chris Poland. Afterwards, Mustaine complimented Loomis on his playing, but rejected him because of his age. Poland was initially replaced by Jay Reynolds of Malice, but as the band began working on their next record, Reynolds was replaced by his guitar teacher, Jeff Young, by which time Megadeth was 6 weeks into the recording of their third album.
So far, so good. So what? 1988-89.
With a major label recording budget, the recording of the Paul Lanny produced So Far, So Good. So What? Took over 5 months. It was notorious for the various problems that occurred during the production, partially due to Mustaine's ongoing struggle with addiction. Mustaine later said, "The production of So Far, So Good. So What? Was horrible, mostly due to substances and the priorities we had or didn't have at the time." Mustaine also clashed with Lanny on several occasions, beginning with Lanny's insistence that the drums be recorded separately from the cymbals, an unheard-of process for rock drummers. During mixing, Mustaine and Lanny became estranged, and Lanny was replaced by producer Michael Wagener, who remixed the album. So Far, So Good. So What? Was released in January 1988 and was well received by fans and critics. The album featured a cover version of the Sex Pistols' Anarchy in the UK, with lyrics altered by Mustaine, who later admitted to simply hearing them incorrectly. To support the album, Megadeth embarked on a world tour, opening for Dio in Europe in February 1988, and later joining Iron Maiden's 7th tour of a 7th tour in the United States. In August 1988, Megadeth appeared at the renowned Monsters of Rock festival at Castle Donington in the United Kingdom, performing to an audience of 107,000 people. One of these shows also featured Metallica drummer, and Mustaine's former bandmate, Lars Ulrich, who made a guest appearance. The band was soon added to the Monsters of Rock European tour, but left after the first show due to Ellefson's drug problems, for which he was treated immediately. Shortly after their Monsters of Rock appearance, Mustaine fired both Byler and guitarist Young and cancelled their scheduled 1988 Australian tour. On the road, things escalated from a small border skirmish into a full-on raging war. Mustaine later recalled, "I think a lot of us were inconsistent because of the guy we were waiting for after the show." During the tour, Mustaine had been noticing problems developing with Byler and brought drummer Nick Menza in to act as Byler's drum technician. As with Gar Samuelson before him, Menza was to be ready to take over for Byler in the event that he could not continue with the tour. Menza became Byler's replacement in July 1989. Young's dismissal resulted from Mustaine's suspicions that he was having an affair with Mustaine's girlfriend at the time, an allegation denied by Young. The band was unable to quickly find a suitable replacement for Young. During this time, Megadeth recorded a cover version of Alice Cooper's No More Mr. Nice Guy as a 3-piece band. The song later appeared on the soundtrack to the 1989 Wes Craven horror movie Shocker. The video for this song was directed by Penelope Spheres, who recalled that filming the video was a Herculean task since Mustaine was unable to play guitar because of his drug abuse. In June 1988, Megadeth appeared in Spheres' documentary film The Decline of Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years. The documentary chronicled the Los Angeles heavy metal scene of the late 1980s, mostly focusing on glam metal. Mustaine later recalled the movie as a disappointment, aligning Megadeth with a bunch of shit bands. While auditions for the new lead guitarist were being held in March 1989, Mustaine was arrested for driving while intoxicated and possessing narcotics after crashing into a parked vehicle occupied by an off-duty police officer. He entered court-ordered drug rehabilitation soon after and became consistently sober for the first time in 10 years.
Rust in Peace 1990-91.
After Mustaine found sobriety, Megadeth continued their search for a new lead guitarist. Among those who auditioned were Lee Altus of Heathen and Eric Mayer of Dark Angel. Mayer had been invited to join the band following Chris Poland's departure, but declined in order to remain in Dark Angel. Guns N' Roses guitarist Slash had been jamming with Mustaine and Ellefson and, though it seemed that he was being drafted into Megadeth, he remained with Guns N' Roses. Dimebag Darrell Abbott of Pantera was also offered the job. Abbott, however, said he would not join the band without his brother, Pantera drummer Vinnie Paul Abbott. Having already hired Nick Menza, the band was forced to turn Abbott down. Marty Friedman filled the empty guitarist position in Megadeth. Friedman was recommended by Ron Lafitte, a member of Capitol Management. Lafitte had heard Dragon's Kiss, a solo recording by Friedman during his tenure in Cacophony. Mustaine and Ellefson were satisfied with Marty's playing style and thought he understood the nature of Megadeth's music. With Friedman in the group, the band completed what fans considered to be the definitive version of Megadeth. A revitalized Megadeth entered Rumbo Studios in March 1990 with co-producer Mike Klink to begin working on what would become their most critically acclaimed album to date, Rust in Peace. For the first time in their career, the band remained sober while working in the studio, alleviating many of the problems they had recording previous albums. Klink was also the first producer to successfully produce a Megadeth album from start to finish without being fired. The recording of the album was documented in Rusted Pieces, a home video released in 1991 which contained 6 music videos and a filmed interview with the band members. Released worldwide on September 24, 1990, Rust in Peace was critically acclaimed, debuting at number 23 in the United States and number 8 in the United Kingdom. Mustaine's writing style adopted a rhythmically complex progressive edge, with songs which contained longer guitar solos and frequent tempo changes. Described as a genre-defining work by Decibel, the album confirmed Megadeth's reputation in the music industry. It featured the singles Holy Wars, The Punishment Due, and Hangar 18, both of which were accompanied by music videos and became live staples. Rust in Peace garnered a Grammy nomination in 1991 for Best Metal Performance, and was certified platinum in December 1994, becoming the group's third album to receive this award. Early in 1990, Slayer had an idea to do a major tour featuring American thrash metal bands. Megadeth accepted, and in October 1990, they joined Slayer, Testament and Suicidal Tendencies for the European Clash of the Titans tour. Following the success of the European installment, an American leg commenced in May 1991, featuring Megadeth, Slayer and Anthrax, with Alice in Chains as a supporting act. This tour was considered to be a multi-headliner, since all 3 bands would alternate time slots. Apart from the Clash of the Titans tour, Megadeth played alongside Judas Priest in North America late in 1990, and appeared at the Second Rock in Rio, which was held in January 1991.
Countdown to Extinction 1992-93.
The recording sessions for Megadeth's 5th studio album started in January 1992 at Enterprise Studios in Burbank, California. Max Norman was chosen to produce the album, as the band was pleased with his mixing of Rust in Peace. The band spent nearly 4 months in the studio with Norman, writing and recording what became Megadeth's most commercially successful effort, Countdown to Extinction. The album, whose title was suggested by drummer Nick Menza, features songwriting contributions from each band member. Ellefson explained that the band changed their approach to songwriting on this album, and started to write songs that were more melodic. Ellefson further noted that the band's goal was to create music that had more of a groove to it, capitalizing on the melodic playing style employed by Friedman, and further assisted by the input of producer Norman. Released on July 6, 1992, Countdown to Extinction entered the Billboard 200 chart at number 2, and was eventually certified double platinum for shipping 2 million copies in the United States. The record saw similar success overseas and helped to develop a larger following for Megadeth outside the US. It received a nomination for Best Metal Performance at the 1993 Grammy Awards, while the album's title track won the Humane Society's Genesis Award in 1993 for spotlighting species destruction and the horrific sport of canned hunts. Ellefson later said that he and Friedman were upset because Megadeth did not win the Grammy Award. "It was such a bizarre moment, because it was as if the amount of work it had taken to ramp up to that hopeful night was literally gone in a second." A world tour in support of the album was launched in December 1992 with Pantera and White Zombie as the supporting acts. The tour included a North American leg in January 1993 with opening act Stone Temple Pilots. 1 month into the leg, all remaining shows, including dates scheduled in Japan, were cancelled when Mustaine returned to substance abuse, ending up in a hospital emergency room. After a 7-week stint in rehab, Mustaine emerged clean once again, and the band returned to the studio to record Angry Again. The song was featured on the soundtrack of the 1993 film Last Action Hero and received a Grammy nomination in 1994. During the summer of 1993, Megadeth performed at a number of shows with Metallica at European venues. The first show was at Milton Keynes Bowl in England, which also included Diamond Head. In July, Megadeth was added as the opening act for Aerosmith's Get a Grip Tour, but were removed from the bill after fewer than 6 shows. Aerosmith stated that they had dumped Megadeth because of Mustaine's erratic behavior, while Megadeth's label Capitol explained that the band was dropped due to artistic restrictions. Following their cancelled US tour, Megadeth returned to the studio to record 99 Ways to Die, a song that appeared on the Beavis and Butt-Head Experience, a compilation album released in November 1993 that featured songs intercut with commentary by the eponymous main characters of the animated series Beavis and Butt-Head. The song was nominated for Best Metal Performance at the 1995 Grammy Awards. During the same sessions, Megadeth recorded a cover version of Black Sabbath's Paranoid, which appeared on the Black Sabbath tribute album Nativity in Black. The cover was nominated for a Grammy the following year, but did not win.
Euthanasia 1994-95.
Early in 1994, Megadeth reunited with producer Max Norman to begin work on the follow-up to Countdown to Extinction. With 3 members of the band now residing in Arizona, initial work began at Phase 4 Studios in Phoenix. A few days into pre-production, problems with Phase 4's equipment forced the band to look for an alternative studio. Mustaine insisted on recording in Arizona, but no suitable recording facility could be found. At the request of co-producer Norman, the band opted to construct their own recording studio inside a rented warehouse in Phoenix, Arizona, later dubbed Fat Planet in Hangar 18. While the studio was being constructed, much of the pre-production songwriting and arrangements took place at Vintage Recorders in Phoenix. At the advice of Max Norman, the tracks featured on Euthanasia were recorded at a slower tempo than on previous records, approximately 120 beats per minute. The band had abandoned the progressive elements from their previous records and focused on stronger vocal melodies and more accessible, radio-friendly arrangements. For the first time in their career, the band wrote and arranged the entire album in the studio, including basic tracks recorded live by the whole band. The album's recording was filmed on video and released in 1995 under the title of Vulva, The Making of Euthanasia. Following 8 months in the studio, Euthanasia was released on November 1, 1994. It debuted at number 4 on the Billboard 200, and charted in several European countries as well. The album was certified gold in Canada the same day it was released, and was certified platinum in the US 2 months later. The group appointed fashion photographer Richard Avedon to further enhance their image. On the advice of Avedon, the band members exchanged their jeans and t-shirts for a more conscious appearance. To promote the album, Megadeth played a Halloween show called Night of the Living Megadeth in New York City, which was broadcast live on MTV. Later in November, the band was invited to perform on Late Show with David Letterman on 2 separate occasions. He played Train of Consequences for their first appearance and A Tout Le Monde for the second. Live support for Euthanasia began in South America in November 1994 and spanned 11 months, becoming Megadeth's most extensive tour to date. Throughout 1995, the band visited Europe and North America, joined by a number of opening acts, including Corrosion of Conformity, Korn, and Fear Factory. The tour culminated in an appearance at the Monsters of Rock Festival in Brazil, co-headlining alongside Alice Cooper and Ozzy Osbourne. In January 1995, Megadeth appeared on the soundtrack of the horror movie Tales from the Crypt Presents, Demon Knight with the song Diadems. In July, the band released Hidden Treasures, an extended play featuring songs that originally appeared on movie soundtracks and tribute albums.
Cryptic Writings 1996-98.
Following an expansive world tour in support of Euthanasia, Megadeth took time off late in 1995. Mustaine began work on MD45, a side project with vocalist Lee Ving of Fear. The duo hired drummer Jimmy DeGrasso, who had been playing in Alice Cooper's band for the South American Monsters of Rock tour earlier that year. Additionally, Marty Friedman constructed a studio in his new home in Phoenix and started working on a solo project, resulting in his fourth studio album, which was released in April 1996. In September 1996, Megadeth went to London to work on songs for their next album, tentatively titled Needles and Pins. The writing was closely supervised by their new manager, Bud Prager, who also contributed musical ideas and lyrics to the songs. Many lyrics and song titles were changed at his request. Regarding Prager's writing influence, Mustaine later wrote, "I figured maybe this guy could help me get that intangible #1 record I so badly wanted." Due to a problem with the album's original artwork, the album cover was replaced with a voodoo symbol and the album was renamed Cryptic Writings. Cryptic Writings was released in June 1997 through Capitol Records. The album peaked at number 10 on the Billboard 200, and was Megadeth's sixth consecutive studio album to be certified platinum in the United States. Its lead single, Trust, became Megadeth's highest-charting song on their mainstream rock tracks, reaching number 5. Trust was also nominated for Best Metal Performance at the 1998 Grammy Awards. Even though all 4 singles from the album entered the top 20 on Billboard's mainstream rock tracks, press response to the album was mixed. The Los Angeles Times noted the album for carrying diverse compositions, and described it as a rousing balance between their older material and some experimental tunes. When asked about the eclectic nature of the album, Mustaine explained that the record was divided into thirds, one part of which was based around faster and more aggressive material. Another third was radio-orientated music like Euthanasia, and the final third of the album was more intermediate melodic material. After more than a year since their last concert, Megadeth returned as a live act in June 1997, beginning a world tour with the Misfits and later touring in the United States with Life of Agony and Coal Chamber. In July, Megadeth participated in Ozzy's '98 but, halfway through the tour, drummer Nick Menza reportedly discovered a tumor on his knee and was forced to leave for surgery. Jimmy DeGrasso, who had previously collaborated with Mustaine in MD45, was hired in Menza's place for the remainder of the tour. Though he was initially meant to be a temporary replacement, DeGrasso joined the band permanently after the conclusion of the tour. Mustaine later said that he dismissed Menza from the band because he believed Menza had lied about having cancer.
Risk 1999-2000.
Following the band's success on mainstream radio with Cryptic Writings, Megadeth opted to work again with country pop producer Dan Huff in Nashville, Tennessee on its 8th studio album. In January 1999, the band began writing a new album, which was also to be supervised by manager Bud Prager, who was credited with co-writing 5 of the album's 12 songs. With high expectations following the chart success of Trust, Mustaine was convinced by Prager to grant Huff even more control over the album's recording, a decision Mustaine later regretted, saying that it backfired. Risk, released on August 31, 1999, was both a critical and commercial failure and led to backlash from many longtime fans. Although its two predecessors had incorporated rock elements alongside a more traditional heavy metal sound, Risk was virtually devoid of metal. Speaking about their musical direction from this period, Dave Mustaine said, "We hit the nadir of our career with Risk, and I vowed after that we were going to get back to our roots. It took a little bit of time to do that." Despite this, Risk reached gold status in the United States. The album's lead single, Crush 'Em, appeared on the Universal Soldier, The Return soundtrack, and was temporarily used as an entrance theme for NHL hockey games and professional wrestling events. On July 22, 1999, former drummer Gar Samuelson died at the age of 41 in Orange City, Florida, of liver failure. 3 days later, during Megadeth's performance at Woodstock 1999, Mustaine dedicated the song Peace Sells in Samuelson's memory. In July 1999, Megadeth recorded a cover version of the Black Sabbath song Never Say Die, which appeared on the second Nativity in Black tribute album. They began their world tour in support of Risk in September, playing alongside Iron Maiden during the European leg. 3 months into the tour, longtime guitarist Marty Friedman announced that he would be leaving the band, citing musical differences. As Mustaine later explained, "I told After Risk that we had to go back to our roots and play metal, and he quit." In January 2000, Megadeth enlisted guitarist Al Pitrelli, formerly of Zarvatage and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, as Friedman's replacement. In April, Megadeth returned to the studio to start working on their 9th studio release. However, 1 month into production, the band was given the opportunity to join the Maximum Rock Tour alongside Anthrax and Motley Crue. Megadeth put recording on hold and toured North America throughout the second quarter of 2000. Early into the tour, Anthrax was removed from the bill, allowing Megadeth to play an extended co-headlining set.
The World Needs a Hero 2000-01.
After working together for 15 years, Megadeth left Capitol Records in July 2000. According to Dave Mustaine, their departure was due to the ongoing tensions between the band and Capitol management. The label returned their newest recordings to the band and, in return, released a greatest hits record called Capitol Punishment, The Megadeth Years, which featured 2 new tracks, Kill the King, and Dread and the Fugitive Mind. In November 2000, Megadeth signed with their new label Sanctuary Records. The band returned to the studio in October to put the finishing touches on their next album, The World Needs a Hero, which had been near completion before the band joined the Maximum Rock Tour 6 months earlier. Following the overwhelming negative response to Risk, Mustaine fired manager Bud Prager and decided to self-produce the next album. The songs were written only by Mustaine, except for Promises, which contained contributions from guitarist Pitrelli. 2 days before the album's official release, Megadeth was featured in an episode of VH1's Behind the Music series. Except for Mustaine and Ellefson, the episode showcased numerous past members, as well as Mustaine's former Metallica bandmates James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. The World Needs a Hero was released on May 15, 2001, and debuted at number 16 on the Billboard 200. However, the album was banned in Malaysia after the national government determined that the album's artwork was unsuitable for the nation's youth. As a result, Megadeth cancelled its planned concert on August 2 in the country's capital, Kuala Lumpur. Musically, the album marked the band's return to a more aggressive sound after the stylistic variations of their previous 2 records, but critics felt the album fell short of expectations. Mustaine compared the album to the first major turn of a huge ship at sea, trying to right itself and get back on course. The album's lead single, Moto Psycho, reached number 22 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock chart. Touring in support of The World Needs a Hero began in the summer of 2001 in Europe alongside AC/DC, followed by an American tour with Iced Earth and Endo in September. Mustaine decided to let the fans choose the setlist in each American city they visited. The tour, however, was cut short following the September 11 attacks. Consequently, the band was forced to cancel all scheduled dates, including a DVD shoot in Argentina. Instead, the band played 2 shows in Arizona on November 16 and 17, which were filmed and later released as Rude Awakening, Megadeth's first official live release. That year, Megadeth's first album, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good, was remixed and remastered using modern techniques. The reissue featured modified artwork and several bonus tracks.
Breakup 2002-03.
In January 2002, Mustaine was admitted to the hospital for the removal of a kidney stone. While undergoing treatment, he was administered pain medication that triggered a relapse of his addiction. Following his stay at the hospital, Mustaine immediately checked himself into a treatment center in Texas. While at the treatment center, Mustaine suffered a peculiar injury causing severe nerve damage to his left arm. The injury, induced by falling asleep with his left arm over the back of a chair, caused compression of the radial nerve. He was diagnosed with radial neuropathy, also known as Saturday night palsy, which left him unable to grasp or even make a fist with his left hand. On April 3, 2002, Mustaine announced in a press release that he was disbanding Megadeth, officially due to his arm injury which made him unable to play guitar. For the next 4 months, Mustaine underwent intense physical therapy 5 days a week. Slowly, Mustaine began to play again, but was forced to reteach his left hand. In order to fulfill contract obligations with Sanctuary Records, Megadeth released a compilation album, Still Alive and Well, on September 10, 2002. The first half of the album contains live tracks recorded at the Webb Theater in Phoenix, Arizona, on November 17, 2001, while the second half contains studio recordings taken from The World Needs a Hero. Following nearly a year of recovery, including physical and electric shock therapy, Mustaine began work on what was to be his first solo album. The new material was recorded with session musicians Vinnie Colaiuta and Jimmy Slowers in October 2003, but the project was put on hold when Mustaine agreed to remix and remaster Megadeth's 8-album back catalog with Capitol Records. Mustaine re-recorded some parts that were lost over time or altered without his knowledge in the initial mixing.
The System Has Failed 2004.
In May 2004, Mustaine returned to his newest recordings, intended as a solo effort. However, due to outstanding contractual obligations with the band's European label, EMI, he was forced to release it as a Megadeth album instead. Subsequently, Mustaine decided to reform the band, and contacted the fan-favorite Rust in Peace lineup to re-record backing tracks on his latest songs. While drummer Nick Menza initially agreed to return, both Marty Friedman and Dave Ellefson were unable to come to an agreement with Mustaine. Menza was dismissed shortly after he began rehearsing with the band again. Mustaine stated that he was not prepared enough and it just didn't work out. Menza was sent home a few days before the start of the tour in support of Megadeth's upcoming album. Regarding longtime bassist Ellefson's departure, Mustaine claimed that Ellefson slandered him, said that his arm injury was fake, and lied about him to the press. Although Mustaine did make him an offer, Ellefson declined. The resulting album was the first Megadeth recording to not feature Ellefson. Original lead guitarist Chris Poland, who performed on Megadeth's first 2 studio albums, was hired by Mustaine to contribute to the guitar solos of the new album. This was the first time the two had worked together since Poland's dismissal from the band in the 1980s. Poland opted to serve only as a session musician, wanting to remain focused on his jazz fusion project, OM. On September 14, 2004, Megadeth released The System Has Failed on Sanctuary Records in the United States and EMI in Europe. It was heralded as a return to form by critics. Revolver gave the album a favorable review, calling it Megadeth's most vengeful, poignant and musically complex offering since 1992's Countdown to Extinction. This record marked a sonic shift towards the band's earlier sound. Journalist Amy Cioretto of CMJ New Music Report wrote that The System Has Failed contained neo-thrash riffing with biting, politically charged lyrics. The album debuted at number 18 on the Billboard 200, and was led by the radio single Die Dead Enough, which reached number 21 on the US mainstream rock chart. Mustaine announced that the album would be the band's last and would be followed by a farewell tour, after which he would focus on his solo career. Megadeth began the Blackmail the Universe World Tour in October 2004, enlisting touring bassist James McAnuff of Iced Earth and guitarist Glenn Drover of Eidolon and King Diamond. While rehearsing for the tour, drummer Nick Menza left the band, unable to prepare for the physical demands of a full US tour. He was replaced by Shawn Drover just 5 days before the first show. Drover would eventually stay with the group as a regular member. The band toured the US with Exodus and, later in Europe, with Diamond Head and Dungeon. In June 2005, Capitol Records released a greatest hits compilation named Greatest Hits, Back to the Start, which featured remixed and remastered versions of songs chosen by the fans from Megadeth's albums distributed through Capitol.
Gig and Tour 2005-06.
In the middle of 2005, Mustaine organized an annual heavy metal festival tour, dubbed Gig and Tour. Megadeth headlined the inaugural run with Dream Theater, Nevermore, Anthrax, and Fear Factory among others. Performances from the Montreal and Vancouver shows were filmed and recorded for a live DVD and CD, both of which were released in the second quarter of 2006. On October 9, 2005, following the successes of The System Has Failed and the Blackmail the Universe World Tour, Mustaine announced on stage to a sold-out crowd at the Pepsi Music Rock Festival in Argentina that Megadeth would continue to record and tour. This concert was held at the Obras Sanitarias Stadium in Buenos Aires in front of 25,000 fans and would be officially released on DVD as That One Night, Live in Buenos Aires in 2007. In February 2006, bassist James McAnuff left the band for what he called personal differences. He was replaced by James Lo Menzo, who had previously worked with David Lee Roth, White Lion, and Black Label Society. On March 16, 2006, the new Megadeth lineup made their live debut headlining the Dubai Desert Rock Festival, held in the United Arab Emirates, alongside Testament. On March 21, 2006, Capitol Records released a 2-disc DVD titled Arsenal of Megadeth, which included archive footage, interviews, live shows, and many of the band's music videos. Due to licensing issues, movie soundtrack videos and videos not released by Capitol Records were not included on the DVD. The second installment of Gig and Tour was launched in the third quarter of 2006. Megadeth headlined the tour with Lamb of God, Opeth, Arch Enemy, and Overkill. The 2006 edition also featured 3 dates in Australia, with Soulfly, Arch Enemy, and Caliban as supporting acts.
United Abominations 2007-08.
In May 2006, Megadeth announced that their 11th studio album, United Abominations, was near completion. Although its release was originally scheduled for October 2006, Mustaine later revealed that the band was putting the finishing touches on it, and postponed the release to May of the following year. Commenting on their upcoming release, Dave Mustaine stated, "Metal needs a really good old-school record again. I believe I have delivered." United Abominations was the band's first studio release to feature members Glenn Drover, Shawn Drover, and James Lo Menzo. In March 2007, Dave Mustaine announced that the album would feature a new version of Etat Le Monde, entitled Etat Le Monde, Set Me Free. The 2007 version is a duet with Christina Scabbia of Lacuna Coil. It was recorded with a slightly faster tempo than the original version and contains an extended solo. United Abominations was released on May 15, 2007 and debuted at number 8 on the Billboard 200, with 54,000 copies sold in the first week. In March 2007, Megadeth initiated a tour in North America as an opening act for the newly reformed Heaven and Hell. They performed with Down for Canadian shows and with Machine Head for the dates in the US. This was followed by a summer festival tour through Europe. In the fall, Megadeth returned to the United States as the headline act on their Tour of Duty tour. In November, Megadeth brought Gigantor to Australia, with a lineup that consisted of Static X, Devil Driver and Lacuna Coil. In January 2008, Glenn Drover quit Megadeth to focus on his family, confessing that he was tired of the frequent touring and wanted to spend more time at home. He also cited personal issues with other band members as reason for leaving Megadeth. Drover was replaced by Chris Broderick, formerly of Nevermore and Jag Panzer. Broderick was initially contacted by Mustaine's management company at the end of 2007 and was asked if he would be interested in auditioning for Megadeth. Broderick responded in the affirmative and was invited to Mustaine's house for an informal meeting. After the meeting, Chris was officially introduced as the band's new guitarist. Frontman Dave Mustaine complimented Broderick's playing skills and called him the best guitarist Megadeth has ever had. Broderick's former Nevermore bandmate Van Williams congratulated Megadeth for acquiring Broderick and said that they were getting one hell of a good player. More importantly, they're getting a great guy to hang out with and a true friend. The new lineup made its live debut in Finland on February 4, 2008. The 2008 edition of Gigantor was launched shortly after, with 29 scheduled dates through North America. Dave Mustaine wanted a shorter lineup to allow each band a chance to perform well. The third installment of the tour featured In Flames, Children of Bodom, Job for a Cowboy, and High on Fire. Megadeth continued the Tour of Duty tour in South America and Mexico throughout May and June. A compilation album called Anthology, Set the World Afire, which featured material from all Megadeth albums to that point, was released on September 30, 2008.
Endgame 2009-10.
In February 2009, Megadeth, along with Testament, was scheduled on the Priest Feast European Tour with Judas Priest as headliners. At this time, Metallica, who had been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, invited Dave Mustaine to attend the ceremony. However, Mustaine was informed that he would not be inducted to the Hall of Fame with the justification given that such honors were granted only to those members who received recording credit on a Metallica album. Mustaine congratulated them respectfully, but instead honored his commitment to the European tour with Judas Priest. In April 2009, Megadeth and Slayer co-headlined Canadian Carnage. This was the first time they has performed together in more than 15 years. Machine Head and Suicide Silence opened for the four shows that occurred later in June. In May 2009, Megadeth finished recording their 12th album, and the following month the album's title was revealed to be Endgame. According to Dave Mustaine, the name paid homage to Alex Jones' 2007 film of the same name. The release date for Endgame was announced on the Megadeth official website as September 9, 2009, and the Metal Hammer website was the first to review the album track by track. Megadeth began its Endgame tour in October, and finished it in December. The tour featured a number of supporting acts, including Machine Head, Suicide Silence and Warbringer. In January 2010, Megadeth was set to embark on the American Carnage tour with Slayer and Testament, both highly regarded bands of the thrash and heavy metal scene. The tour was scheduled to begin on January 18, but was postponed due to Tom Araya's back surgery. Several weeks later, Megadeth's Head Crusher was nominated for Best Metal Performance at the 2010 Grammy Awards, marking the band's 8th Grammy nomination in 19 years. In March 2010, Megadeth embarked on their Rust in Peace 20th anniversary tour, which took place in North America and had support from Testament and Exodus. During the tour, Megadeth played Rust in Peace in its entirety, commemorating the 20th anniversary of its release. In February 2010, prior to the start of the Rust in Peace 20th anniversary tour, original bassist David Ellefson rejoined Megadeth after 8 years. In an interview for Classic Rock, he stated that Megadeth drummer Shawn Drover contacted him, informing him that bassist Lo Menzo was leaving the band and that if ever there was a time for you and Dave to talk, now is it.
2010-12.
Megadeth, along with Metallica, Slayer, and Anthrax, collectively known as the Big Four of thrash metal, agreed to perform on the same bill during the summer of 2010. These performances were part of the Sonosphere Festival and were held in a number of European countries. One such performance, which took place in Sofia, Bulgaria, was filmed and released as a video album entitled The Big Four, Live from Sofia, Bulgaria. These shows continued the following year in the United States. The first concert took place on April 23, 2011, in Indio, California, and was the only scheduled show in the United States at the time. Shortly after this, a second American production was held at Yankee Stadium in New York City. In July 2010, after the conclusion of the European Big Four shows, Megadeth and Slayer commenced the first leg of the American Carnage Tour, where Megadeth played Rust in Peace in its entirety, while Slayer performed their albums Seasons in the Abyss, both of which were released in 1990. From these shows onwards, Vic Rattlerhead started making sustained on-stage appearances, in order to improve the visual facet of Megadeth's live performances. Shortly afterwards, these two bands united with Anthrax for the start of the Jägermeister Music Tour, which took place in the fall of 2010. During the final show of the Jägermeister Music Tour, Kerry King joined Megadeth on stage at the Gibson Amphitheatre in Hollywood, California, to perform Megadeth's classic Rattlerhead. It was the first time that Kerry King had performed on stage with Megadeth since the latter's early shows in 1984. Megadeth and Slayer would again share the stage for the European Carnage Tour in March and April 2011. Megadeth also headlined the 4th annual Rockstar Mayhem Festival, held in July and August the same year. In September 2010, the band released their DVD album Rust in Peace Live, recorded at the Hollywood Palladium in Los Angeles. Later that month, Megadeth released a song titled Sudden Death for the video game Guitar Hero, Warriors of Rock. The song was commissioned by the publishers of Guitar Hero franchise, who wanted the track to feature dark lyrics and multiple guitar solos. It was eventually nominated for a Grammy in the Best Metal Performance category at the 2011 ceremony. In an October 2010 interview for Cryptic magazine, drummer Shawn Drover stated plans for a 13th Megadeth album. Dave Mustaine confirmed that Megadeth would be recording at their own Vic's Garage studio in California. It was announced that the record would be produced by Johnny K, because Andy Sneap, the producer of Megadeth's previous two albums, was not available. Mustaine subsequently revealed that the album would be titled 13 and would feature previously released tracks such as Sudden Death and Never Dead. The album was released on November 1, 2011, and charted at number 11 on the Billboard 200. Its lead single Public Enemy No. 1 received a Grammy nomination for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance, but did not win the award. Shortly after the album was released, Dave Mustaine stated that, after 4 years of absence, there would be a new gig and tour in early 2012. The lineup consisted of Motorhead, Volbeat and Lacuna Coil alongside Megadeth. After the conclusion of Gig on Tour, Rob Zombie and Megadeth announced a 9-date co-headlining US tour to be scheduled for May 2012.
Super Collider 2012 present.
In September 2012, it was announced that the band would re-release Countdown to Extinction in honor of the album's 20th anniversary. To mark the occasion, Megadeth launched a 2012 fall tour in which the band performed the album live in its entirety. One such performance, filmed at the Pomona Fox Theatre, was released as a live album called Countdown to Extinction, Live the following year. Additionally, in December 2012, another track from 13, Whose Life Is It Anyways?, was nominated for Best Hard Rock Metal Performance at the 55th Grammy Awards, but ultimately lost to Halestorm's Love Bites, So Do I. In August 2012, the band stated that they would be returning to the studio with producer Johnny K to record their 14th album. In December 2012, Dave Mustaine revealed that the new album was underway and that 3 new songs were tracked and almost done. At the start of 2013, Megadeth left Roadrunner Records for Mustaine's label, Tradecraft, distributed through Universal Music Group. The album, Super Collider, was released on June 4 and debuted at number 6 on the Billboard 200, the band's highest chart position since 1994's Euthanasia. Critical reaction to the album, however, was largely negative. shortly after the release of Super Collider, Mustaine stated that he had already started thinking about a 15th Megadeth album. According to Mustaine, this was spurred by the then recent death of Slayer guitarist Jeff Hanneman, which gave him a sense of mortality. Mustaine elaborated, "We're planning our next time to go into the studio to start demoing up our next record, and you know, time is short. Nobody knows how long they're gonna live. You see what happened with Jeff Hanneman, so I wanna write as much as I can while I can." In 2014, Megadeth were slated to play the Soundwave Festival in Australia, but were pulled from the lineup after troubles arose concerning the band playing sideshows with Newsted and Mustaine's interactions with the tour promoter, AJ Madder.
Controversy.
Megadeth's founder Dave Mustaine is notorious for making inflammatory statements in the press, usually regarding feuds and problems with former Metallica bandmates. The feud between him and Metallica members stemmed from his ejection from the band, about the way it was conducted and disagreements on songwriting credits. Mustaine emotionally expressed his anger after getting fired from the band in their movies Some Kind of Monster. Mustaine later said that he was misrepresented during that scene and did not approve it because he felt it did not represent the full extent of what happened during the meeting. During Megadeth's live performance of Anarchy in the UK at a 1988 show in Antrim, Northern Ireland, Mustaine drunkenly, and, as he later acknowledged, confusedly, dedicated the song to the cause of giving Ireland back to the Irish. Before the final song, Mustaine said, "This one's for the cause." This triggered a riot among the audience between Catholics and Protestants, and a fight amongst the audience ensued. The band had to travel in a bulletproof bus for the remainder of the tour of Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Mustaine later alleged that he had been misled by T-shirt bootleggers about the meaning of the expression "the cause." This incident served as inspiration for the song Holy Wars. The punishment due. Controversial and misinterpreted lyrics have also been the foundation of complications for the band. For instance, the music video for In My Darkest Hour was banned from MTV in 1988 when the music channel deemed the song to encourage suicide. The music video for A Tout Le Monde was also banned by MTV for the same reason. According to Mustaine, the song was written from the perspective of a dying man, saying his last words to his loved ones. According to Mustaine, MTV had also been refusing to play Skin Oh My Teeth and Symphony of Destruction, because they considered the videos to be a little bit too harsh. During Megadeth's world tour in 2001, the Malaysian government cancelled their show in the nation's capital because the authorities there had a negative perception of the group's image and music. The government specifically pointed to the band's mascot Vic Rattlerhead as inappropriate and told the members that they would be arrested if they appeared on stage and performed. Dave Mustaine responded to this, "I recognize what the Malaysian government is trying to do, and it is admirable of them trying to protect the young people in the country. But it just shows the degree of ignorance and apathy that the government has toward the problem." In July 2004, former bassist Dave Ellefson sued Mustaine for $18.5 million in Manhattan federal court. Ellefson alleged that Mustaine shortchanged him on profits and backed out of a deal to turn Megadeth over to him when they disbanded in 2002. Ellefson also accused Mustaine of locking him out of merchandise and publishing royalties. The suit was dismissed in 2005, and Mustaine filed a countersuit that was settled out of court. In 2003, after healing an arm injury that threatened to end his career, Mustaine became a born-again Christian. Minor controversy was sparked by Mustaine's announcement that Megadeth will not play certain songs live anymore due to his new identification as a Christian. In May 2005, Mustaine also allegedly threatened to cancel shows in Greece and Israel with extreme metal bands Rotting Christ and Dissection due to the band's anti-Christian beliefs. This caused the two bands to cancel their appearances.
Artistry. Influences and style.
Traditional heavy metal bands, Black Sabbath, members of the new wave of British heavy metal, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, Diamond Head, and punk rock bands, Sex Pistols and Ramones, all played a significant role in shaping Megadeth's sound. Hard rock bands such as AC/DC and Led Zeppelin were also influential in forming the group's trademark guitar style. Although their music is rooted in punk, university professor Jason Bivins noted that Megadeth followed the basic blueprint of Motorhead and Iron Maiden. He described their style as a mix of the instrumental virtuosity of the NWOBHM with the speed and aggression of hardcore punk, while also drawing lyrical inspiration from the horror-obsessed Misfits. Frontman Dave Mustaine had also listed a few albums by the Beatles and UFO as recordings that influenced him. Mustaine serves as the band's primary songwriter, composing songs which are developed from a certain riff. With further modifications, that riff becomes the central part of the song. He proclaimed that the song fragments are separately composed, and then the band turns them into a compact structure. Drummer Shawn Drover revealed that Mustaine had saved many riffs over the years and that some of their recent material is based on those demo recordings. Speaking about their writing routine, bass guitarist David Ellefson stated that the band is constantly creating new material. He explained that making a record begins with throwing new ideas back and forth, after which the band enters the studio and discusses the concept, direction, artwork, song titles, etc. While discussing the band's lyrics, Mustaine said that many of the themes were derived from literature. As fan of George Orwell's work, he had written some songs based on Orwell's novels. Megadeth's music is characterized by its distinctive instrumental performance, featuring fast rhythm sections and complex arrangements. After forming Megadeth, Mustaine decided to follow the thrash metal style of his previous band Metallica, with more emphasis on speed and intensity. Along with his snarling vocal style, the band developed a unique musicianship that was highly regarded in the metal community. When asked to describe Megadeth's guitar style, Mustaine answered, "When you go to a show and see a guitar player who just stands there, that's a guitar player. A thrash guitar player is a guy who plays like he wants to beat the guitar's guts out." Like their underground metal contemporaries from the 1980s, Megadeth's tunes contained harsh vocals, staccato riffing, tremolo picking and screeching lead guitar work, while their albums from this period were produced with low budgets. The majority of their songs have been recorded in standard guitar tuning because Mustaine believes it to provide a superior melody as compared to alternative methods of tuning. During their early days, Dave Mustaine was the rhythm guitarist, while Chris Poland served as the lead guitarist. Although Poland performed only on Megadeth's first two albums, music journalists Pete Prone and Harvey P. Newest credited him with making the music more colorful because of his jazz influences. According to former Metal Maniacs editor Jeff Wagner, the band's songwriting techniques peaked with their fourth album, Rust in Peace, which he described as a flurry of precision and fluidity, making good on Megadeth's claim to being the world's state-of-the-art speed metal band. Musicologist Glenn Pillsbury noted that guitar work on the album was a mixture of Mustaine's controlled chaos and the technical brilliance of Megadeth's other lead guitarist, Marty Friedman. Their studio efforts released in the mid and late 1990s featured songs with compact structures and less complicated riffing. Lyrically, Megadeth's songs often convey gloomy themes focusing on death, war, politics and religion. Their lyricism is centered around nihilistic themes, but occasionally deal with topics like alienation and social problems. Their earliest releases featured themes such as occultism, graphic violence and poetry about Satan. Nuclear warfare and government conspiracy were lyrical preoccupations on albums like Rust in Peace and Countdown to Extinction. During Megadeth's commercial peak, Mustaine elaborated on less controversial themes such as addiction and personal relationships. While discussing the lyrical content on their seventh album Cryptic Writings, Mustaine explained that he wanted to write songs that had more appeal to a wider audience. The title of the group's 11th studio album United Abominations is a satiric play on the name of the United Nations. Mustaine criticized their ineffectiveness on a number of songs on that record. Later albums contained lyrics in a similar vein.
Legacy.
Having sold over 50 million records worldwide, Megadeth is one of the few American underground metal bands from the 1980s that achieved mass commercial success. Along with their fellow contemporaries Metallica, Slayer and Anthrax, Megadeth's music is considered essential in creating the core of thrash metal. These bands are often referred to as the Big Four of thrash, responsible for the genre's development and popularization. Loudwire ranked Megadeth third among the best thrash metal bands of all time, praising the group's provoking lyrics and mind-warping virtuosity. CMJ New Music Report labeled their debut album a seminal release and a representative of the golden age of speed metal. Similarly, Billboard called their second album Peace Sells. But Who's Buying? A landmark of the thrash movement, whose lyrics are still relevant. MTV also recognized the band as an influential metal act, highlighting the technical aspect of their early albums. Aside from gaining critical acclaim, Megadeth is considered as one of the most musically influential groups that originated in the 1980s. As part of the early American thrash metal movement, their music was directly responsible for the birth of death metal. Sociologist Keith Kahn Harris wrote that the mainstream success of Megadeth was one of the reasons for the expansion of extreme metal to places where it had previously been unknown. Their sound and album artwork had influenced a number of next-generational thrash metal bands, including Toxic Holocaust and Warbringer.
Awards.
Genesis Awards. 1993, Doris Day Music Award, Countdown to Extinction. Loudwire Music Awards. 2011, Metal Album of the Year, 13. 2011, Metal Song of the Year, Public Enemy No. 1. Metal Hammer Golden Gods Awards. 2007, Riff Lord, Dave Mustaine. Revolver Golden Gods Awards. 2009, Golden God, Dave Mustaine.
Members. Timeline. Discography.
Killing Is My Business. And Business Is Good. 1985, Peace Sells. But Who's Buying? 1986, So Far, So Good. So What? 1988, Rust and Peace, 1990, Countdown to Extinction, 1992, Euthanasia, 1994, Cryptic Writings, 1997, Risk, 1999, The World Needs a Hero, 2001, The System Has Failed, 2004, United Abominations, 2007, Endgame, 2009, 13, 2011, Super Collider, 2013.